Everybody, I'm Dana Shoaf, editor of Civil War Times Magazine, and I'm here with Melissa Winn, director of photography, and welcome to our November First Monday's broadcast. And it's a clear, blustery, cool November day, and today we're going to be bringing you sights from Frederick County, Maryland. And our first location is this property in the house behind me that was the headquarters of Major General William Buell Franklin, the commander of the Union 6th Corps of the Army of the Potomac during the 1862 Maryland campaign. And I want to orient you before we talk about that, just kind of show you where we are and give you a sense of place here. So Melissa is going to slowly pan the camera 180 degrees around, and you're going to see to the west the wall of South Mountain running off to the north to your right and to the south to the left. In the middle, almost, you're going to see the notch of Crampton's Gap, one of the gaps in South Mountain in this area, where fighting took place on September 14th, 1862. Fighting will also take place at Fox's and Turner's Gaps to the north. You can't really see those. Turner's Gap is the furthest north, and it's about 6 miles away from Crampton's Gap here. Now, if you follow South Mountain all the way to the left, it'll eventually drop off where the Potomac River is. Right at the base of Crampton's Gap, right at the base of that notch, is the little village of Burkittsville, which is also involved in the engagement of Crampton's Gap. So bring it back to me, Melissa, and I'm standing, and we'll talk about this house in a second, but just kind of to bring it all together. So, of course, in September of 1862, General Robert E. Lee has taken his Army of Northern Virginia across the Potomac River into Maryland. Major General George McClellan's Army of the Potomac is pursuing, but McClellan doesn't really know where Lee is. Lee has got the jump on him. And then on September 13th, 1862, some of McClellan's soldiers find Lee's plans, Special Orders 191. Now, that's a very controversial issue. Did McClellan act quickly enough? Did he move slowly? That's really the topic of another broadcast. But suffice it to say, McClellan gets, for the first time, a good sense of the fact that Lee's army is dispersed and divided, and he knows what they're up to. So he is going to order Franklin to take his 6th Corps from about 12 miles east of here across another mountain range, the Catoctin Mountain, we'll see in a minute, and he wants his men to march on September 14th from Adamstown, Maryland, which is on that other side of the mountain, here to the Burkittsville area, force their way through the pass at Crampton's Gap, and attack Confederates that are besieging Harper's Ferry, which is to the southwest of here, the town of Harper's Ferry, and try to break the Confederate siege of that town. So that's what Franklin's orders are going to do, and throughout the 14th, his 6th Corps marches here, and this is the property that he establishes as his headquarters. Now, using this as his headquarters doesn't necessarily mean he's in the house. He follows pretty standard protocol, and he will pitch his tent in the yard that Melissa will pan to. That's where his headquarters guard is located. That's where his tent is located. But this is a really nice high spot with a tremendous view. As you can see, it had a great view of Crampton's Gap. It has a great view to the north. He can see a lot from here. Franklin gets criticized for not attacking the mountain more quickly. He vastly outnumbers that Confederate force, although he doesn't really know that. Franklin has almost 13,000 men. There's only a little over 2,000 Confederates on that mountain, commanded by Brigadier General Howe Cobb. Some infantry, some cavalry, and a few artillery pieces. So I don't think Franklin should be absolved for moving slowly, but if you stand here and you look at that mountain, as I am right now, it is pretty formidable looking, and when you don't really know what's there, it's going to give you pause. You need to figure out who's on that mountain and before you attack it. The Union attacks begin about 4 in the afternoon, and once they begin, they pretty quickly crush the Confederate opposition because they're so vastly outnumbered. The Union is in possession of the gap by around 5:30 at night, but by then darkness is falling, so they can't really take advantage of the opportunity to move into Pleasant Valley on the other side and try to move toward Harper's Ferry. And that delay is one of the reasons Lee is going to have the opportunity to bring his forces together near Sharpsburg, Maryland, which is going to precipitate the Battle of Antietam on September 17th. So this is the headquarters location that was used by Franklin during the Battle of Crampton's Gap. Now let's take a walk to the front of the house so you can get a look at it. I can tell you a little bit more about it. When we go out there, there's going to be some wind noise because it's kind of breezy today. We're shielded from it here, but you're probably going to hear it in the camera out front. We're going to do the best we can. So as we're walking, you're going to notice these beams that are supporting the structure. For a long time, this house was neglected and wasn't taken care of, but fortunately, not long ago, the Burkittsville Preservation Association, a nonprofit, was formed to protect this house. And since then, they've begun preservation efforts. They've got these beams supporting the west wall that was in bad shape. And we're going to walk out near Kaplan Road here. And then Melissa's going to bring it back around so you can see the front of the house. And it doesn't look great, I'm sure, to many of you, but it looks a lot better than it did. Those louvers in the window are providing ventilation, and work is ongoing here to preserve the property. It has some post-war additions. This bay window is post-war, and that sort of bulging room on the right was added after the war to accommodate a billiards room. The peak in the roof is also post-war, but the main wartime structure remains intact. It was built around 1820, and it was rented by a man named Martin Schaefer during the Civil War. If you want to take a tour of the property, the Burkittsville Preservation Association now has a sign out by the road. You can stop, and there are phone numbers to contact. They also have a website, Burkittsville Preservation Association, that you can check out and see what's going on here. So our second production, our second video, about 1:45 this afternoon, we're going to be talking to an archaeologist, which is going to be really interesting because there's recently been some archaeology done here and some archaeology as well done on the South Mountain battlefields, Crampton's Gap area, etc. So we're going to talk to her, meet her, and see some of the artifacts that they've recovered. So there's a lot of positive things happening out here on the South Mountain battlefields. We'll talk more about those a little bit later on this afternoon. So this is our start for our first Monday's broadcast, and I hope you'll join us later on today for the archaeologist. And at our last production today, we've got a really, really special story to tell you. Really interesting, that's required a lot of detective work on our part. Before we sign off, Melissa, is there anyone to say hello to?
Yeah, we can say hello to Brian Ray from North Carolina.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
John Banks.
John Banks, hey.
Sherwood Peters from Japan.
Oh, fantastic.
Rayanne Kaiser.
Rayanne Kaiser, how are you?
And Sharita Bitterkoffer.
Sharita Bitterkoffer, you've been on watching us several times. We appreciate that.
And Tim Murray from Gainesville, Florida, as well as several other people.
Tim, thank you. Pam Barry, good to see you as well. So this is Dana Shoaf and Melissa Winn from Civil War Times Magazine signing off from Franklin's headquarters near Burkittsville, Maryland, and we'll see you later this afternoon.